Ever find yourself reaching for something sweet, even when you're not actually hungry? It just feels automatic. What if that impulse has less to do with willpower and everything to do with chemistry, with what's happening inside your brain? So why does sugar have such a powerful hold on us? I mean, what is going on there? The answer, it turns out, goes way deeper than just a simple craving. We're going to look at the real biological and psychological reasons that make that pull feel so intense. Okay, so our story actually starts by looking way, way back. The struggle we have with sugar today didn't just pop up in a candy aisle. It began with our earliest ancestors. So you need to know this isn't some modern flaw. It's literally ancient programming. That intense desire you feel for something sweet, that's not a character weakness. It's a deeply ingrained survival instinct. Think of it like this. Your brain is running on an old operating system, one that was perfectly designed for a world that, well, no longer exists. You have to imagine, for our ancestors, finding high-sugar foods like fruit or honey was like striking gold. It was a rare source of quick energy that let them build up body fat, which was absolutely crucial for surviving lean times. So to make sure they'd go out and find it, the brain developed this powerful reward system. Every time they ate sugar, it released feel-good chemicals, basically sending a powerful message: yes, this is good, do this again. So what happens when you take that ancient reward system and drop it into our modern world where sugar isn't rare at all? It's everywhere. Well, this is where the trouble really begins. Let's look at the cycle that gets kicked off inside the brain. The main character in this whole story is a neurotransmitter called dopamine. It's at the heart of the brain's reward system, and its job is pretty simple. When you do something your brain thinks is good for survival, like eating, it releases dopamine, and that creates a feeling of pleasure, which motivates you to, you guessed it, repeat the behavior. And this process creates a really simple but incredibly powerful four-step loop. You eat sugar, your brain's reward system gets a big flood of dopamine, you feel that intense pleasure, and your brain logs that experience, creating this subconscious drive to do it again. Every single time that loop completes, that pathway in your brain just gets a little bit stronger. But here's something that's really important to get. Not all sugars are the same. Our brain needs glucose. You can think of that as its clean, steady fuel. The problem is a lot of the sugar in processed foods today is fructose, and fructose is processed differently. It's much more reactive in the brain. You could think of it as a dirtier fuel that can lead to problems like inflammation and oxidative stress. And this brings us to the next crucial phase, how that initial reward loop can really escalate. We're moving away from simple reinforcement now and into a cycle of dependency, one that's defined by these intense highs and, unfortunately, unavoidable lows. So here's how that cycle plays out. You get the high from that dopamine surge, right? But then comes the crash. Your dopamine levels fall, often below their normal baseline. And this leads to feeling irritable, tired, and just down. Your brain then sends out a powerful craving, a signal that it needs more sugar to feel good again. This creates a compulsive cycle where you're not just chasing the pleasure anymore, you're running from the pain of the crash. And when you try to break that cycle, the consequences feel very real. These withdrawal symptoms, they're the direct result of your brain's chemistry being thrown off. The anxiety, the irritability, the fatigue, that's all tied to those low dopamine levels. Your brain has basically become dependent on sugar to help regulate your mood, and now it's struggling to function without it. This, of course, leads us to the big question, one that gets debated a lot. Is it really accurate to call this an addiction? Well, let's just look at what the research points to. Here's the crucial point. While scientists might argue about the official label, the parallels are pretty hard to ignore. The behaviors that are driven by too much sugar, that compulsive use, the intense cravings, the loss of control and withdrawal, they mirror the classic traits we see in substance dependence. So let's zoom out and look at the long-term cost. What happens when this cycle repeats, day after day, for years? The evidence is pretty clear that a chronic high-sugar diet doesn't just mess with your mood temporarily. It can physically rewire and even damage the brain. To really grasp the impact, you have to understand this one thing. Your brain is an energy hog. It's the most energy-demanding organ you have. It devours half, literally one half, of all the sugar energy in your body. And because it's so demanding, it's incredibly sensitive when that fuel source gets out of whack. And the damage can be significant. Chronically high sugar levels contribute to inflammation all throughout the brain. Research has linked it to brain atrophy. That means shrinkage. It directly impairs our ability to learn and remember, specifically by harming the hippocampus, which is absolutely vital for making new memories. It can also damage the tiny blood vessels in the brain, restricting blood flow and starving brain cells. And look, this isn't just a theory. In one study, scientists gave a group of rats unlimited access to sugar water. When they later tested them to see if they could recognize a familiar object, the high-sugar group's memory was significantly impaired. They struggled to tell new objects from old ones, a really clear sign of damage to the brain's memory centers. Now, after hearing all the potential damage, it's important to understand this. The brain is adaptable. It's not set in stone. It actually has the ability to change and to heal. By lowering your sugar intake, you give your brain a chance to recalibrate its chemical balance and start repairing those pathways. The system can readjust itself. So, what's a practical first step? Well, it's not about restriction, it's actually about awareness. The first action is just to observe yourself, with no judgment. Simply notice one instance today where you reach for sugar out of habit, or maybe boredom or stress. And then in that moment, just pause. Take a single conscious breath. That's it. The goal isn't to stop the action, but to create a little space, a tiny gap between the impulse and the action. And we'll end with this question. Understanding that your brain's relationship with sugar isn't fixed, knowing that it can, in fact, be rewired, is powerful information. The only question is, what does that knowledge mean for the very next choice you make?